once we understand that concept of entities, really one of the most important things that make up entities are attributes. And you can think, if you think of a form and a field on a form, that field corresponds to an attribute. So when we're talking about making changes to the actual database structure and customizing things at the entity level, you'll typically see the word attribute used, although a lot of people will use it. You can also kind of use this interchangeably with a field. So I can add new fields to the entity form by basically adding an attribute to the entity and then adding it to the form. You'll see it's a two-part process. And interestingly, for most of the system entities that you work with, almost all of them, as a matter of fact, I can't think of a single exception to this. It's probably all. There are a lot more attributes stored in the database than are exposed on the form by default. And that's an important point. I'm going to take you through that, because what that means, that what you see a lot, if people don't understand that, is that you tend to add attributes that really are already there. So I'm going to give you some perspective on that and kind of some guidance. And there are some things that you tend to see over and over again if you're customizing some of the more common entities: account, contact, lead. I'll try to give you some guidance on what's out of the box there that might not be obvious because it's not exposed on a form. There's two types of attributes. System attributes are created by Microsoft Dynamics CRM, by the actual system, and then custom attributes are created by you. That's an important distinction because there's some differences in what you can do with those things. Now, again, high level, this is overview. Publishing customizations is what makes customizations visible to users. We're going to be playing the role today, when I do my demos and everything, of the system, somebody in the system administrator role, which is a special security role, because that role can do anything. Okay, but if I'm a system administrator and I make a bunch of customizations and save them out and think I'm done, I'm not, because A, I have to publish them, and B, I have to give people access to these custom entities. So you'll see an example of this, but basically publishing is going to make these things available, take you through that. Then exporting and importing really has to do with portability. This is how, for example, I could, like one of the things I do with this is I've got the online version of my workflow book that subscribers get access to. And one of the things that's convenient to do is to illustrate a lot of the points in the book with workflows, and I can upload those workflows to the site, and people with access can download those workflows, import them into their system, and then tweak them to get them to work in their Dynamics CRM organization. So this first bullet point makes the point that you can, a lot of times what you'll do is you'll import a base set of customizations and then use that as a starting point. So it's fairly straightforward to do this, and I'll show you lots of examples of this throughout the course of the day. You can just export from one system and import to another, and subject to a few caveats about being careful of overwriting things that are already there. That process is pretty straightforward and fairly simple. And you can also import and export from Dynamics CRM online to on-premise and vice versa. So that's another nice advantage of this, of the architecture that Microsoft has, is they're fairly unique in terms of the competitive landscape of customer relationship management systems, in that they have both a hosted, a cloud version, Dynamics CRM Online, and a traditional on-premise version based on the same architecture. So I can take customizations from one of those and easily move them to another. So here are the items that are included that you can basically move from one organization to another by this importing exporting process. And there's a lot of these things. Most of what we'll be doing today would probably go in this first category, this custom and customizable entities. I know that's a mouthful, but sometimes important distinction. I'll take you through that. The entities and the metadata that they contain. But we can also do a lot of other things. If you've customized security roles, you can export security roles and import into another system. System settings, we'll talk about that a little bit. Workflows are an important piece of what you can export and import. Templates, things like email templates and contract templates and things like that. And then this client extensions, that has to do with the last topic, or the last group of topics that we'll talk about today, which is sitemap and ISV config and some things like that that probably don't mean much now, but will shortly. This slide here talks about, basically what I'm doing here is kind of categorizing the different customization methods. And this again is one of those examples of a slide that has a lovely slide build if you do it in native PowerPoint. You know, you can imagine those 1, 2, 3, and all that kind of stuff. And if I send you the PowerPoint, you can walk through that yourself. But here we do the whole bill at once, so it kills the suspense, but not the effectiveness, hopefully. So what this does is it goes through from least complex to most complex, and a lot of these things are what we're going to cover today. Security roles, reports, personalizations. These are, in a sense, they're this is kind of a foundation thing. Some people wouldn't consider that a customization, but I think it is integral to understanding how you customize CRM. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Security roles. If you're going to change security roles, you do need to be a system administrator, but lots of users can personalize. So even just the things that users can do, as distinct from what a system administrator would do for customizations. Some people, you might even think of those as customizations, because there's a fair amount you can do. And I'll draw some distinctions between those in the demo. The second, slightly more complex topic is forms and views. That's got a separate chapter on that. That is an important topic, and that is definitely along the lines of something that traditionally just a system administrator can do. If you customize forms and views for a dynamic CRM entity and you publish those customizations, you will impact everybody in an organization that has privilege to see that entity that you customize. So those are definitely things that you don't want everybody doing. Probably even more so once you start making customizations to attributes and entities. Now that's really changing those are so-called schema customizations. You're changing the database structure, and you are going to impact everybody in an organization. So these are system administrator only things. Then customizing entity relationships. We talked about that, but those are logically probably slightly more complex, and in a logical sense, you tend to do those after you customize entities. So we'll go through some exercises today where I'm creating custom entities from scratch, and well, logically you have to create those entities first before they can be involved in relationships with other entities. So that will come next. Workflows is a big topic, and I don't, arguably it's maybe slightly more complex than these, but it's a big enough topic that I'm not going to cover it today. It's got its own session. It's definitely worth a day. The workflow engine, the workflow user interface, and design environment Dynamic CRM is one of the real strong parts of the product, and I don't want to shoehorn it into a one-day treatment with all this other important stuff, so it's got its own session. Script we will talk about, basically writing JScript behind form events. Form scripting is something that, again, that's a big area, but I can cover it in a brief enough format to give you a starting point with it, and give you some links and references to where to go to take it a little further than that. And then the sitemap, ISV config, a couple of related topics. This has to do with customizing the menus and the basic user interface of Dynamic CRM. This last topic, this is .NET server-side code, so custom pages, plugins, custom workflows. I won't cover that today other than to mention it in the last session. I'll just give you some pointers about what you can do, the kinds of things you can do with that. And the other reason that I won't talk about that number 8 topic, the most complex kind of customization from a support standpoint, is that this also doesn't work with Dynamic CRM Online. That's on-premise only. And I wanted to keep this session focused on core features that can do both.